Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, November 9th, 2021 Prior Lake Spring Lake Watershed District Board of Managers meeting. Our first order of business, would you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is the public comment period, and just because we have individuals in the chambers this evening, is there anybody that wishes to speak at the public comment period? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the approval of the agenda, and I'm going to ask my colleagues if there are any changes to the agenda. Seeing none from my colleagues, Joni, no changes on your side, then I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries 4-0. Thank you. So now we're under other old new business, programs and projects update. Take it away, Jamie.
Actually, you're the first one.
All right. Our lake level logger is reading 900.55, and it is currently out of the water. So the stilling well it sits in is currently not deep enough. It's just pretty interesting. It was installed after the most recent time it was lower than this. So that's on the to-do list. Spring Lake is at 909.56.
Sorry, Jeff, sorry to pause you, I don't like to interrupt, but so it's actually the water is lower than 900.55 right now, right? Which was interesting because I kept seeing the water go down and I'd go to the site and look and go, really? It hasn't moved? And I keep watching it go down and down and I'm seeing more shoreline stuff. So
that
you
is
have ballpark
correct.
On how much lower is it, sir?
Not more than two more tenths.
Oh, okay, just barely. So
yeah.
Okay, all right. Thanks for allowing that interruption. Go ahead, Jeff.
For anybody interested in looking at real-time lake levels, the DNR staff gauge is connected to the underneath the wagon bridge connecting upper and lower Prior Lakes.
Okay, if you haven't heard yet, we do have a new staff member that joined us last week. Her name is Elizabeth Froden, or if you want to get fancy and try to pronounce it in the Swedish way, it's something like Frodin. But she is a great addition so far. She got a bachelor degree in geology, and she also has her master's in hydrology, hydrogeology, and water resources from Stockholm, Sweden. She does have quite a bit of experience that's going to really help us out. She's done some communication, outreach, and education materials with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and also she worked at the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District doing lake and stream monitoring and carp management over the last year. So we are super excited to have her, and just a great girl. We did give a presentation to the Prior Lake Association annual meeting last week, and so I just wanted to kind of touch base on that and some of the things that we talked about at the meeting, because I thought it'd be good to share with everybody rather than just them. So yeah, we got great feedback, tons of compliments to Jeff and I. So it was a really fun meeting, and like I mentioned, I'm just going to kind of go over a few slides that I thought everybody wouldn't mind seeing anyway, just the more interesting ones. So this is the Prior Lake water levels from 2012 to 2021, and you can see that the levels are the lowest that they've been since 2012. And I did apologize for that, for the kind of running joke that we have control over the lake levels. So sorry about that. But no, really, of course, it's all due to Mother Nature and rainfall. But I picked this time frame just because this is when we installed the level logger, so it records every 15 minutes, and then you can see some empty spaces when we had to take it out for winter. But of course, the big hump in 2014 was the flood that we'll forever remember, and now it's lower than it seems like we can ever remember. But if you actually go back, 120 years or so, you can see that it's not actually all that historic, the water levels that we are having right now. So what I did here is I graphed the lowest reported water level on Prior Lake each year. So if you go back to 1906, they only had one reading in 1906. So it was the lowest that was recorded, but it wasn't probably the lowest for that entire year. That red line is the outlet structure weir, so that's 902.5, and then that blue dotted line is just where the water level is at today, so that you can kind of get a good visualization of when the water has been lower than what it is today. So if you kind of go back, you can see the next time that it was lower than it was today was in 2010 and 2009, and then you go back and you see that big divot. That was, if you remember, the drought in the late 80s and early 90s. And then the Dust Bowl era, the water was actually approximately like 17 feet lower than what it is today. So it was significantly drier. So just trying to kind of put it in perspective, like it is low for sure, but it's been a lot lower. And in the 30s, when it was that low, this is actually what the lake looked like. There were a bunch of pockets of ponds throughout the lake, and that red line is the approximate water level of where it is today. But some may recall that there were actually parts of the lake that were farmed. So really interesting to see that, and then you can compare it to kind of what it looks like today. This is from 2019, but it's pretty much, for all intents and purposes, the same. So hopefully it doesn't get much lower, but just wanted to point that out. Also, I had presented the water quality results for Upper Prior Lake. These are preliminary, but most likely very, very close. And just to quickly point out, without having to describe the graph, since the alum treatment, this is the second year in a row where we are meeting all three parameters for the water quality standards. So again, yeah, this last year was the first year in recorded history that we had met all three of those parameters, and this is the second year in a row. And not only that, but the water quality is even better than it was last year. So it's really exciting to see that. And yes, we also got a round of applause at the meeting when I presented that, so that was pretty fun. So one of the reasons that the water quality could have been better is not only the alum treatment, but because of the drought, there wasn't as much runoff. So I think it could be a combination of the alum treatment and not having as much runoff, but it's too early to tell, and we'll be able to see what's going on next year. But the other thing that was interesting that happened was that the vegetation in Upper Prior Lake grew substantially. So we used that vegetation density monitoring software to map where the vegetation is growing. And so the map on the left is where from about 2016, and the blue is no vegetation, and the red is where it's growing to the surface, and green is in between. So, and then looking at 2021 on the right, you can see all the green throughout the lake, and that is how the lake should be, because 85% of Lower Prior Lake is actually less than 16 feet deep, which is the depth at which vegetation will grow if the water is clear enough. So some of those black parts that we didn't map, we just knew that the lake was deeper than that, and vegetation wouldn't grow that deep. So again, this was really exciting for us. I know it's not super exciting to, for boaters and recreation users of the lake, but with the more vegetation in the lake, the easier it is for the lake to sustain water clarity over time. So this is excellent for water quality. And you can also look at that graph to see the percent of the lake bottom where vegetation has covered the bottom of the lake. So you can see that big spike in 2021 where it was actually a little bit over half of the lake growing vegetation. So it's really exciting news. And also we did, of course, talk about the carp, which was a big hit. And I won't go into too much detail, but it's just really fun to see this, to me, this graph at the bottom left that shows the population estimates of carp from 2016 to 2021. We are making a dent, and they just, I just pointed out how hard the carp team really works to get these guys out, and they've done everything that we can possibly think of. So it's nice to see that it's actually paying off. So that's kind of a summary of what some of the graphs or slides that we showed the Prior Lake Association last week.
So this last month we've been quite busy with carp work. We've been tracking carp. Most of them are located around the Nadior Marina. We've conducted numerous fish surveys. We installed, the surveys were taken in the 1217 wetland, the Desilt Pond, Lower Jeffers Pond, and Upper Jeffers Pond. We're looking for young of year carp, bluegills, and any other species we can catch using standard and mini pike nets. This aids our carp management decisions. We also installed the tadpole barrier in Spring Lake. This was kind of our last big barrier installation project for our grants. You want to go back one?
Can I just, to those that maybe don't know, we aren't actually barriering tadpoles. It's called the tadpole pond, so we aren't preventing tadpoles from going through. It's actually carp. Oops.
We are still on track for stocking walleye with our joint fish stocking effort, and our recent work is going to be potentially November 17th or 18th. I'll have more details to come early next week on when those fish will be stocked in our lakes.
Okay, are there any questions?
I have one comment and some maybe clarification. But so first of all, it's back on the water quality. This again, I moved on Upper Prior in 93, so I've been on the lake for about 18 years and have always played in that water in a variety of fashions, and really the water quality is outstanding. And this is the first year, last year a little bit too, but even just from my own health perspective and our son, who when we go in the water, our sinuses would explode from all the crap that's in there, and it was difficult to breathe. I'd have to rinse it, and et cetera. Don't want any too much TMI, but the health benefits really, to not just obviously anecdotally to me, but I know it's the kids who play in this water all year, all season long. This stuff means the healthier things for our kids, not just the plant life. And I get it, but I still need to draw attention because this is a big deal, and it's not just the alum treatment, it's the carp, it's everything else that we've done for the decades to keep the phosphorus from coming in, dealing with it once it's here, and all the stuff we continue to do. But it's awesome. I mean, this is the way we get this lake off the impaired list, and it's a healthy place for our kids to play. And, you know, we know that's what the lakes are about here in Minnesota. So that's a big deal. The last thing, Jeff, I'd ask you, you ended up sending an email around to the managers and maybe others regarding the fish stocking. And I think this is worthy of emphasizing what this means to us. So the DNR, if I'm correct, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I get to practice restating things to see if I've learned. But if I understand correctly, the DNR is typically stocked fish every other year. Is that correct? Yes. And the DNR was going to stock 1,000 fish in the 3 lakes, Spring, Upper, and Lower Pryor. Because of our partners, the Spring Lake Association, the Pryor Lake Association, the Rotary, and Slater Realty, and of course contribution from this Watershed, we're going to stock an additional 3,000 walleye in those 3 lakes. So we're going from 1,000 to 4,000 walleye that we are stocking in this lake. So that is a big deal. And it's part of why I think all these folks ponied up some money, because people were very excited. Minnesota's favorite fish is the walleye. So it's a big deal. People might not come out, but I think all the people that I ever talked to, asking them what they think about that, they said, this is unbelievable. This is great that you guys are doing this kind of stuff. So I know it was a lot of work. I heard from Joni that there was a little more work than we had anticipated from a staff and your perspective, but this is another, you know, really big deal on something to make this a great set of lakes here in our community. So I just wanted to sort of share that. Thanks. Anybody else? Kurt, you had something?
Couple questions, and this might be more for Carl, but when is there a timeline for the next alum treatment on Upper Pryor? Because I believe the first thing I heard was the second year after the first treatment there'd be another treatment. Or is it depending upon the water quality results?
It is dependent on water quality results, so that, I think once Jamie has the final results back, that'd be something that's looked at.
When do we get those results?
You might actually have them by now if it's,
Do you?
The water quality on Upper.
For Upper Pryor and Spring?
Yeah, we just have the preliminary results right now, but I anticipate getting them.
What were they?
Within the next month. That's what's on the slide right now.
Oh, okay.
So most likely this is correct. It's just like, well, maybe one, you know, they checked to make sure that there weren't any results that were off the charts or, you know.
Well, this is Pryor Lake. How about Spring Lake?
We haven't had time to look at that yet. We don't have the final results. I asked for the preliminary water quality results for Pryor because we were speaking to the Pryor Lake Association meeting, but we don't have the final results for Spring Lake yet.
Manager Hennis, if I may, it is my understanding as well that we will need to do some borings into the sediment of the lake next year to help us once again assess when is the right time to do the alum treatment. I believe that, yes, the original estimates were going to say 2 years later, but if things are looking really good, then we may, and it's looking that way, that it may not be next year, but it may be the next year after that.
No, I understand that. I didn't know if it was a fixed thing or not. If it's not a fixed thing, that's fine, and the water is good. That saves us money too. So, the other question I had was I guess it was the water sample results. It was the same thing, that and the alum treatment. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the next item. That's our consent agenda. So again, typically that's the time when we vote en masse for a number of items that typically are non-controversial, but I'm just going to ask any of my colleagues, are there any items on the consent agenda you would like removed? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries 4-0. Thank you. So now we're on to the treasurer's report. Bruce, this is yours, sir.
Okay, well, in your packet, you've seen the claims list, and Joni kind of went over that a little bit in our workshop. So I don't know if there's any questions on that. Should we go over some of the unique bills that were in there? And our budget for so far, at the end of October, is looking pretty good. We do have a lot of items that will be coming in toward the end of the year. We also will have our second payment of tax levy coming in from Scott County. So,
End of November?
yeah, it's
Yep.
end of November, December, but it'll be coming in. So the treasury report basically is just showing what do we have for funds at this time, and we still are looking, and again, we are looking at restricted funds and assigned funds. We're still, I think Joni and I are gonna meet with Chris and Laura to discuss, like the upper watershed, how to handle that, but essentially, we kind of want to wait till the end of the year, see how that flushes out. We'll be able to see what we have left in that account. But as of right now, we have available cash about $712,519. One item I want to bring to your attention is that I had to sign, since we have over $250,000, which is the federal deposit insurance limit at banks, I had to sign a pledge, I think they call this some pledge security or with Old National. That's something that we've been doing. So they get, from that, they have some bonds or some surety that guarantees that they'll cover anything over $250,000. So then I go, okay, well, I better check with Sterling Bank and see what we got there. And they didn't have, he had to research it and come back. He got back to me today. And essentially, we have to take out what I call like a repurchasing agreement, a savings account, and insurance that we pay for. It's $105 a month times for this surety or bond. Yeah, so, and I need to check further. I don't believe we're paying anything with Old National, but I'm gonna find out for sure. I don't think we are. So that is a little kink in the banking that I don't think we realize when we switch banks. So right now, we still have, and you can see it on the treasury report, how much money we still have in Old National. Joni and I were getting ready to transfer it over. We want to kind of keep it open because we still had some bills coming in and revenue coming in from the state to that account, and then Sterling Bank. So up for discussion, any thoughts or comments on that? I mean, that would be $1,200 and whatever, $60 a year just to have surety, which
So-
we're not paying now.
Bruce, can I ask you, so in our business, our private business, we actually had multiple bank accounts, partly because of interest rates at one account, so that's where we kept our funds deposited. Can we do something like that too, Bruce? Can we leave the money in if we are reducing our costs for the taxpayers and then just move it electronically when needed from a cash flow and sort of play treasury management is in essence what we're doing?
Yeah, Joni,
Is there,
let her take care of it.
Joni, can we do that?
Manager Meiser, I believe we can have multiple banks.
Yep.
We may want to, we do need to kind of call out who our primary bank is, and we may want to switch over who that primary bank is. Right now, we don't have the ability to do electronic transfers, but I have gone and gotten a cashier's check and walked it over to the other bank.
Yeah, right, that too.
So there's nothing that prohibits the Watershed District from having two bank accounts.
Okay, so is this something you'd come back to us when you were, if you were looking feedback, is this something you dig into and see,
Yeah,
see what alternatives we have to?
Yeah, I didn't know Joni actually found the statute, and we're reading the statute, anything over 250,000, we're supposed to, it's a requirement, we're
Yes,
supposed to
to
have
protect the
surety.
taxpayers' money.
Yes. So, once I did that with Old National, I said, I went over to Sterling, what do you guys have that I could see that we'd have to do, and he came back, and there's actually a cost, which we don't have a cost, I don't believe, with Old National.
Well, that's it.
Well, that's probably something I'll have to come back to them and say, we're not paying anything now, so,
Or just
anyway.
leave it there,
or.
if that's a
or
viable
we-
option.
Yes, so, anyway, that's just came up
You're
at
alerted.
3 o'clock today.
Okay, thank you. Good to know, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for.
No, we need to
tracking
protect,
that down. Yeah,
we need to protect taxpayers' funds.
they're here.
by statute, so.
Yep, thank you. Bruce, I did want to ask, I wanted to, got thinking about cash flow and year end, where we might end up. And I realized one of the things in the cash flow statements that we have, what this will show is just total cash, again, not the restricted stuff. And I got thinking about that for the first time in our cash flow projections, because I was like, well, how much of this is really watershed related versus maybe PLOC stuff? And so is there a way, if you guys are back sort of thinking about year-end stuff, maybe adding in a layer
Yeah, I was
that
gonna
we
say,
might?
add a row,
Yep.
saying what's signed and what's restricted.
Yep, exactly. So we know what really sort of true free cash, available free cash kind of stuff is for the watershed.
Yep.
And I'm sure there's a definition because we're adding restricted funds, but, so that'd be good to know. Thank you. That was all I had. Anybody else? Anything for Bruce? Seeing none. Bruce, you're gonna 2021 budget amendment? Or
Manager
Joni?
Meisner, I'd be happy to
It's
introduce
back to
that.
Joni. Sorry, it was under Bruce's, so I was gonna make Bruce do it. Just kidding. Go ahead.
So this really is, managers, this really is a house cleaning item. When the district went through their budgeting process for 2021, that budget was established in approximately September of 2020. And at that point, district staff made their best estimate of the amount of grant funds that they anticipated that would be expended by the end of the year. And at that point in September, it was estimated that there would be $90,000 of remaining grant funds to be expended in 2021. In reality, at the end of the year, the district had expended $30,000 more than we had budgeted for. So coming into 2021, instead of $90,000, we really only had $60,000 of our grants left to expend in 2021. This has never, this discrepancy has never been adjusted in our financial statements. So what I'm doing here right now is just making that correction to have our financial statements reflect reality, which will help staff as we're doing our year-end reporting to make sure that we are tying out our numbers appropriately.
Thanks, Joni. Questions? Anyone? Steve, you look like you had one. No? Bruce?
Just want to clarify, that's in the grant column of our budget for Carp management, 90,000 is 60,000?
That is correct, Manager Loney.
Okay. Thank you.
We do need a motion.
We do. Go for it.
I move that we adopt the staff recommendation reducing the amount from 120,000 to 90,000.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Thanks by 4-0. Thanks, everybody. All right, we're on to the final item. Here are the upcoming meeting event schedule. Somebody else want to, Bruce, you want to take the CAC, and I'll go ahead and take the PLOC.
Okay, the CAC will not be meeting in November due to Thanksgiving holiday, the fourth Thursday of the month is what we usually meet. And so our next meeting will be Thursday, December 9th, which is the second Thursday of the month, from 6:30 to 8 p.m.
Thank you. And the next Prior Lake Outlet Channel Cooperators or PLOC meeting is December 15th from 12 to 1:30 at Prior Lake City Hall in the Parkview Conference Room. Anybody have anything else? Kurt?
I don't see anything on the upcoming events for our either annual or semi-annual board retreat.
You know, because we had one in the summer, I actually wrote that. If you look at here, I had retreat on here. I was going to bring it up in the workshop. And then I realized because we had just had one, I was going to park it and bring it up next meeting.
Well,
Yes.
the big reason I bring it up is we did last year in January. And,
Yes.
And you know what happened.
Correct.
Some of us got snowed out.
Yeah.
So is there some reason we got to do it in the middle of winter?
No? We were just doing it at the beginning of the year, but no.
Just back it up a little bit, that would be nice, Mr.
Yeah,
President.
that'd be fine.
Couple
Yeah, but
Thank you.
I was going to bring this up, so I'm glad you were on it too. I hadn't forgotten that we're coming close to that. So, okay, with that then, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, Joni?
Manager Meiser, once again, there's a typo on the agenda. The Prior Lake Channel Cooperators meeting is on December 16th, not the 15th.
16th, thank you. With that, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries 4-0. Thank you. We're adjourned. Good night, everybody.